Princess Arikana stood at the edge of the balcony, looking down at the city of Veshtar. The towers shone under the twin suns, their metal surfaces reflecting light like polished mirrors. She had always loved this view, but today it brought no peace. The council chambers had been full of whispers and tension all morning, and now she felt the weight of her people pressing down on her. War had lasted for generations, and her people were tired. The humans were stubborn, persistent, and always one step away from either retreat or total destruction. And yet, here she was, about to marry one of them to secure peace. She had known about the political proposal for weeks. The humans had suggested a marriage alliance, and her council had debated endlessly. Some argued that the humans were weak, unworthy of joining Veshtari blood. Others warned that refusing the alliance would risk everything they had fought for. Arikana had spent countless nights considering what was expected of her. Duty, she had been told, was never easy. She had to act not for herself but for her people. The choice, ultimately, had been hers. She had volunteered to marry the human representative. Many of the generals had muttered under their breath, calling her foolish, calling it a dangerous risk. They expected the humans to reject her, to send someone too weak or fragile to pose any threat. But humans were unpredictable. They were clever in ways other species did not always understand. When the day of the meeting arrived, Arikana walked into the ceremonial hall with confidence she did not feel. The humans had chosen their representative carefully, and she had no idea what to expect. The hall was vast, filled with the metallic hum of Veshtari architecture. Lights reflected from the floors and walls, creating a pattern of sharp lines that seemed to cut through the air. She noticed the council members stiffen as the human arrived, some stepping back as if instinctively sensing danger. Though no one knew why, he walked calmly into the hall, unarmored and unassuming. His presence was simple, almost casual, but there was something in the way he moved that made the room fall silent. Arikana had been told to expect someone fragile, someone who would bend under the weight of their expectations. Instead, she saw a man standing straight, his posture relaxed yet confident. His eyes, a shade of gray she had never seen before, scanned the room once, then settled on her. There was no fear, no hesitation, only a quiet certainty. "Princess Arikana," he said, his voice calm but strong. "It is an honor to meet you." Arikana found herself surprised by the warmth and directness in his tone. She expected politeness. Yes, but not this level of confidence. She nodded politely, keeping her expression neutral. "The honor is mine, Commander Elias Ward." Elias did not bow or lower his gaze. He simply stood, waiting, calm as the council buzzed with muted astonishment. He had come alone, unarmed, which her generals whispered about nervously. Arikana wondered if he understood the dangers he was walking into. Humans were often underestimated, she had been told. Most of her people saw them as weak. But humans were clever, and cleverness could be as deadly as strength. The council began the formal discussion, outlining the expectations of the marriage, the benefits for both sides, and the obligations each party would hold. Arikana listened, but her mind kept drifting to Elias. There was something about him she could not place, something that felt different. Her instincts, honed over years of diplomacy and battlefield experience, whispered caution, but also curiosity. She had met many species in her lifetime, but few had left her feeling this unsettled and intrigued at the same time. After the formalities, Arikana found herself alone with Elias in a smaller chamber. She studied him, noticing the calmness in every movement. Humans, she thought, must be far more resilient than her people believed. He smiled slightly, sensing her scrutiny, but did not flinch or react in a way that suggested arrogance. It was a simple, honest smile, and it unnerved her more than any warrior's threat ever had. "You do not seem afraid," he said quietly. "I have seen many people react differently when they meet me for the first time." Arikana raised an eyebrow, testing him. "Perhaps I have learned not to show fear. Perhaps I do not believe the humans are truly dangerous." Elias's eyes flicked to the balcony. where the city stretched out below, and back to her. "Some humans are dangerous," he admitted. "But I am not here to prove strength. I am here to protect peace, and perhaps to show that humans are not as fragile as you might think." Arikana blinked. The words were calm, yet she felt a ripple of unease. Protect peace? Humans had fought countless wars in the stars, yet here he was, speaking as if his strength was secondary. She wondered if he underestimated the challenge of uniting their species, or perhaps he simply understood it better than she did. The days before the marriage were tense. Arikana attended council meetings, trained in combat protocols, and studied human history as presented by the embassy. She learned about the wars humans had fought on countless worlds, about their adaptability, their survival under conditions that would have destroyed other species, yet every account seemed mild compared to the calm confidence Elias showed. She began to understand that humans did not always rely on physical superiority. They had something else, something deeper, something that could not be easily measured. Finally, the day of the ceremony arrived. Arikana wore the traditional Veshtari ceremonial robes, heavy with symbols of her people's history. Elias wore a simple uniform, its design elegant and practical. As they approached the ceremonial platform, thousands of Veshtari citizens and soldiers watched silently. The air was thick with expectation, pride, and unease. The marriage was a symbol of peace, but many still doubted its strength. The ceremony itself was brief. Words of alliance were spoken, oaths were exchanged, and the council sealed the agreement. When it was done, Arikana looked at Elias, expecting relief, perhaps even triumph. Instead, she saw calm. He had not flaunted strength, nor had he made grand gestures. He simply stood beside her, steady and unshaken, as if the weight of the event mattered little compared to the purpose behind it. In the following days, Arikana began to notice subtle things about Elias. He observed Veshtari warriors during drills, not with judgment, but with curiosity. He spoke with soldiers politely, listening more than he spoke. He asked questions that seemed simple at first but revealed a deep understanding of strategy, psychology, and survival. Arikana found herself impressed despite herself. She had assumed that his role was symbolic, that he was a figurehead to ensure peace. But there was a quiet competence in every action he took. One evening, she joined him on the balcony. The suns were setting, casting long shadows over the city. The temperature was cooler than she was used to, and the light seemed softer, almost forgiving. "You are different from what I expected," she said quietly, not looking at him. Elias turned to her, eyes thoughtful. "Different in what way?" "You are human. Everyone says humans are weak compared to Veshtari. I expected someone fragile, someone to rely on my people's strength. But you are calm, confident. You do not seem afraid of anything." He smiled faintly. "Fear is natural. It is how we respond that matters. Some species focus on strength to survive. Humans focus on adaptability, on problem solving, on endurance. We survive because we can adjust faster than others. Sometimes that makes us appear weaker. Other times, it makes us stronger than anyone expects." Arikana considered his words. She had always measured strength in battle, in brute force, in the ability to crush enemies quickly. Humans measured it differently, she realized. Perhaps strength was not always visible, and perhaps she had underestimated it for too long. As the days passed, she observed him in more situations. He dealt with disputes among soldiers calmly, defusing tensions that could have erupted into violence. He spoke to diplomats with patience, never losing composure even when negotiations became heated. Arikana began to see that his strength was quiet, subtle, and terrifyingly effective. One night, she found herself thinking about what it would mean if war ever returned. Could one human really stand against the might of the Veshtari? Could he protect her people if the council's judgments failed? If rebel forces rose? She did not ask him. She did not need to. Something deep inside told her that he could. Somehow, she knew he would not just survive. He would endure. He would prevail. And though she did not fully understand how, Arikana felt a strange sense of hope. Perhaps the marriage was not just a political alliance. Perhaps it was the beginning of something stronger, something more enduring than she could have imagined. The city lights shimmered in the twilight, and the winds of Veshtar whispered around them. Arikana turned to Elias. And for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future beyond duty, beyond fear, beyond expectation. A future where peace was not fragile, where strength came in forms she had yet to understand, and where humans, in their quiet way, could be heroes unlike any she had ever seen. The night settled over the city, and Arikana realized that she had married not just to secure peace, but to witness something extraordinary. She did not yet know the full measure of Elias Ward. She did not know the wars he had survived, the battles he had endured, the enemies he could face. But she felt it. In the air, in the quiet moments, in the steady confidence he carried. The humans were not weak, and the man she had married would change everything she thought she knew about strength. The first sign of trouble came in the form of distant explosions along the Veshtari border. Arikana was in the council chambers when the alarms began to ring, their sharp cries echoing through the vast halls. Soldiers rushed to their stations, and the generals exchanged tense, urgent glances. Arikana felt her heart tighten. Even with peace declared, there were always those who opposed it, those who saw the marriage as a weakness. A messenger arrived, breathless from the long run, carrying reports of a rebel attack. Korzath, a warlord who had never accepted the peace treaty, had gathered a force and attacked a small border city. His goal was clear: to prove that humans were weak and to shatter the fragile alliance. Arikana listened to the generals' frantic discussion, noting their unease. They all assumed that the humans, including her husband, would be unprepared for such an assault. Elias stood quietly, listening to the chaos around him. When the generals began arguing over whether he should even be involved, Arikana felt a flash of irritation. The humans were supposed to be symbolic, she reminded herself. Yet something about Elias made her hesitate before dismissing him. "You will stay here," one general said sharply. "This is Veshtari territory. You will not fight among our people." Elias met the general's gaze evenly. "And what if the people need me?" he asked. His voice was calm, almost gentle, but there was a firmness beneath it that made the general flinch slightly. "Your duty is to remain protected," another general shouted. Arikana stepped forward, raising her hands to stop the argument. "Let him decide," she said. Her voice carried authority that quieted the generals, if only for a moment. She turned to Elias. "Do you think you can help without endangering yourself?" Elias nodded. "Yes. If my presence gives even a single soldier a better chance to survive, I must try." She swallowed hard. By all measures, it was madness. Sending one human into a battle with thousands of rebels seemed suicidal, yet the certainty in his eyes left her with little choice. She nodded reluctantly, and he prepared to leave. The streets outside were filled with Veshtari soldiers and drones, but Elias walked alone. He carried no heavy weapons, only a compact sidearm and his combat suit, which was lighter than anything Veshtari warriors used. Many whispered among themselves, thinking he would be quickly overwhelmed. Arikana followed from a distance, her pulse quickening as she watched him move calmly toward the chaos. The first sight of the battlefield shocked her. Fires burned along the edges of the city. Smoke rose in black clouds, carrying the acrid scent of molten metal. Rebels armed with energy weapons and heavy armor had already taken positions, preparing for a full assault. The Veshtari defenders were struggling to hold the line. Elias approached the nearest group of rebels. He moved with a speed that seemed almost impossible. One moment he was behind cover, the next he appeared in the open, disarming two attackers before they could fire. His movements were fluid, precise, and deliberate. Each step, each action, seemed to defy the assumptions the Veshtari soldiers had made about human fragility. Arikana watched, wide-eyed. She had trained in battle her entire life. Yet Elias moved with a confidence that made even seasoned generals pause. His body adapted instantly to every threat, dodging energy blasts, leaping over obstacles, and using his environment in ways no one had expected. When a rebel tried to attack him from the rear, he turned with perfect timing, disarming the opponent and sending him sprawling. Word spread quickly among the Veshtari soldiers. Whispers turned into murmurs of awe. "He's unstoppable," one muttered. Another said, "I've never seen a human fight like that." Elias continued, moving deeper into the conflict. Explosions rocked the area around him, but he never faltered. He carried wounded soldiers with one arm, while neutralizing enemies with the other. He climbed onto armored vehicles, disabling them by ripping out critical systems with hands that seemed, impossibly, both delicate and unbreakable. Arikana could hardly breathe as she watched. She realized that every assumption she had about humans was wrong. They were not weak. They were not fragile. They had endurance, adaptability, and instincts honed by centuries of surviving harsh environments. Elias embodied all of that. He did not fight to conquer or to show strength. He fought to protect, to survive, and to ensure the lives of others were safe. Hours passed. The city was on fire, yet Elias moved tirelessly. No weapon could slow him. No obstacle could stop him. Veshtari drones transmitted images of his actions back to the command center, and the council could not believe what they saw. Soldiers who had been pinned down behind debris now moved freely, inspired by his presence. He became more than a man. He became a symbol of hope. Finally, the last rebel stronghold was reached. Korzath's forces had underestimated Elias completely. He moved through the defenses like a force of nature, disarming the remaining enemies with precision strikes and unerring timing. When the rebellion's leaders attempted to flee, he intercepted them, ensuring that no one escaped to regroup. Arikana ran to the scene as the last sparks of battle died down. She found Elias standing amidst the wreckage, calm and uninjured. With Veshtari soldiers slowly emerging from their hiding places, they stared at him in disbelief, many still unable to comprehend how a single human had defeated an entire army alone. You survived," she whispered, almost to herself. She could hardly believe it. Elias looked at her, sweat on his brow, but his expression remained steady. "I did what I could," he said simply. "Your people fought well. I only gave them a chance." The generals approached, their expressions a mix of shock and grudging respect. "We underestimated you," one admitted. "You are more capable than we ever imagined." Elias shook his head. "I am just one human. My strength is not mine alone. It comes from survival, training, and knowing how to adapt. Anyone can achieve this if they are willing to learn and endure." Arikana looked around at the city, the soldiers, and the ruined battlefield. The price of peace had been high, but she now understood that Elias's presence was more than symbolic. He had proven that humans were capable of feats no Veshtari had believed possible. She felt a mixture of awe and relief. Perhaps this was the start of something new, a bond between their species that went deeper than politics. Over the following days, the council demanded explanations. Arikana and Elias met with generals, scientists, and diplomats. Elias spoke of human evolution, of how humans had survived on harsh planets, how they had adapted to impossible conditions, and how endurance and intelligence often outweighed brute strength. He explained calmly that humans were not physically strongest in every situation, but they were adaptable, unpredictable, and resilient in ways other species were not. Arikana listened, fascinated. She realized that her people had measured strength in ways that were limited, focused on armor, weapons, and physical prowess. Humans measured strength differently, in ways that were subtle, yet powerful. Elias embodied this in every action, every decision, every calm moment in chaos. Even with peace secured, Arikana knew the threat was not over. Korzath had survived in legend, and others might rise. Yet, she felt a newfound confidence in the presence of her human husband. His strength was not only in his body but in his mind, his ability to endure, and his unwavering commitment to protect. One evening, as the city recovered from the attack, Arikana found herself on the balcony once more. The twin suns had set, leaving a soft glow over the horizon. Elias joined her quietly, looking out over the city with the same calm determination he had shown on the battlefield. "You changed everything today," she said softly. He turned to her, his eyes steady. "I only did what I could. Your people have the courage and skill. I only gave them the edge to survive. Strength is not just what you see. It is what you endure and how you respond when tested." Arikana nodded. She realized she had much to learn, not just about humans, but about what it meant to lead, to protect, and to trust. Elias had shown her that strength could come in quiet, unexpected forms, and that hope could rise even in the darkest moments. The city was quiet now, but Arikana knew it was only temporary. The universe was vast, and dangers always lurked. Yet for the first time, she felt that they could face whatever came next. With Elias at her side, she understood that humanity was more than she had ever imagined. They were not fragile. They were survivors, and the human she had married could face armies alone and still protect those he loved. As night fell, Arikana felt a sense of awe and anticipation. This was only the beginning. Peace was fragile, but with humans, perhaps it could endure. Perhaps together, they could face any threat. And perhaps, one day, the galaxy would learn the truth that she now knew. Never underestimate a human, and never doubt the courage of those who fight for what they love. After the attack on the border city, word of Elias Ward's actions spread faster than Arikana could have imagined. Initially, the Veshtari Council treated the reports as exaggeration. Tales told by frightened soldiers trying to make sense of a chaotic battle. Yet the evidence was overwhelming. Drone footage, sensor readings, and first-hand accounts all confirmed the impossible. One human had faced an army and survived, not only surviving but neutralizing threats and saving hundreds of lives in the process. Arikana sat in the council chamber, listening as generals argued over the implications. "It is unprecedented," one said. "We have never seen a single warrior, from any species, perform feats like this. The humans, they are stronger than we thought." Elias stood quietly at her side. He did not boast, did not correct the generals, and did not show any sign of pride. That calm, steady demeanor was part of what unnerved the Veshtari even more. Strength, they realized, was not about armor or size. It was about focus, endurance, and adaptability. The council demanded an explanation, and Elias began to speak. He described the nature of humanity in simple terms. Humans, he said, had evolved under harsh conditions, planets with unpredictable climates, predators far more dangerous than themselves, and environments that changed constantly had forced humans to adapt. Where other species relied on natural weapons or armor, humans relied on their mind, their endurance, and their ability to improvise. Arikana listened carefully. She had always thought of humans as fragile, often dismissing them as weaker than Veshtari warriors. Now, she realized her perspective had been incomplete. Humans were not the strongest by conventional measures, but they were unpredictable, resourceful, and almost impossible to suppress when determined. Elias embodied all of that. News of his actions spread beyond Veshtar. Neighboring worlds, allies, and even enemies began to study the reports. Military analysts attempted to understand how a single human could withstand and defeat entire squads of highly trained Veshtari soldiers. Some argued that the humans must have advanced technology or secret weapons. Others admitted reluctantly that it might be the human body itself, honed by evolution and survival instincts, that was so formidable. Arikana watched Elias as he interacted with her people. He trained soldiers, not in flashy techniques, but in endurance, problem-solving, and observation. He taught them to anticipate threats, to move with precision, and to survive in impossible situations. Veshtari soldiers, many of whom had never doubted their own superiority, began to see him as a teacher rather than a guest or symbolic figure. Despite his calm, Arikana noticed a quiet intensity in him. He rarely rested, and when he did, it was only for a short time. His eyes always scanned, always observed, always prepared for the unexpected. She had faced countless battles herself, yet even she could not keep up with his energy and focus. The human's resilience was more than physical, it was mental, strategic, and relentless. One evening, Arikana approached him on the training grounds. The sun was low, casting long shadows over the city. Soldiers practiced drills while Elias moved among them, correcting postures, advising on movement, and demonstrating techniques. "You never seem tired," she said softly. Elias paused and looked at her. "Fatigue is natural, but how we manage it defines us. Humans have learned to endure more than most species can imagine. Survival is not about strength alone, it is about focus, planning, and persistence. Those who endure become more capable than those who rely only on power." Arikana thought about the battle she had witnessed. Elias had not only defeated the rebels, but had done so with precision and restraint, ensuring no unnecessary deaths. That combination of skill and moral restraint made him even more formidable. She realized that his actions inspired loyalty and courage, not fear. Over the next weeks, rebel activity increased. Korzath, humiliated by his defeat, had retreated but was gathering support. Other warlords who opposed peace saw the humans as a threat, and the galaxy began to take notice. Intelligence reports from distant planets began arriving, confirming sightings of Elias's movements and tactics. Everywhere he went, humans, even far from Earth, were proving capable of feats that many species considered impossible. Arikana accompanied Elias on one of these missions. A small Veshtari settlement near the frontier had been attacked by rogue mercenaries. The town was lightly defended, and the council expected a simple containment strategy. But Elias insisted on going in person. When they arrived, the settlement was under siege. Buildings were burning, civilians were trapped, and the attackers were heavily armed. Veshtari soldiers hesitated at the edge of the conflict, unsure how to approach. Elias walked calmly into the chaos. He moved with speed and precision, disarming attackers, guiding civilians to safety, and disabling weapons with methods the Veshtari could barely understand. Each movement was calculated, efficient, and lethal, only when necessary. Arikana watched in awe as soldiers around her began to rally, inspired by his presence. The attackers were strong, yet one human had turned what seemed like a hopeless situation into a complete defense. After the battle, Elias met with Arikana. She could see the exhaustion on his face, but it was tempered by focus and determination. "You make it seem effortless," she said. "I have trained for this," he replied. "But it is not just training. It is knowing that others depend on you. Survival is important, yes, but protecting others makes endurance possible. Fear and doubt can be used, or they can be overcome. Humans have learned to overcome both." Arikana nodded. The lesson was clear. Strength was not always visible, and survival often depended on qualities beyond raw power. She felt both admiration and a sense of urgency. The galaxy was changing, and humans would play a larger role than she had ever anticipated. Back on Veshtar, the council convened again. They debated the humans' true potential and how to incorporate Elias's skills into their own military strategies. Many were reluctant to admit that a single human could outperform their entire army. Others recognized that understanding humans could be key to maintaining peace. Elias spoke with humility, sharing knowledge without arrogance. He explained the importance of adaptability, endurance, and strategic thinking. He trained Veshtari soldiers not to mimic him physically, but to understand how to survive under pressure, make quick decisions, and remain calm when surrounded by chaos. Arikana observed all of this, realizing that the human's greatest strength was not in weapons or armor, but in their ability to adapt, learn, and endure. Elias had shown her that even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope could exist. and victory was possible if one understood the true nature of strength. As days turned into weeks, the galaxy began to whisper about the human who had faced armies alone. Stories spread beyond Veshtar to neighboring worlds. Some treated him as a hero. Others feared him. Every species that learned of his deeds was forced to reconsider their assumptions about humans. No longer could they dismiss the humans as weak, fragile, or inferior. Arikana stood on her balcony one evening, looking out at the horizon. The suns were setting, and the city was calm. Soldiers moved through the streets. Civilians rebuilt homes, and life continued. Yet she knew this peace was fragile. Korzath had survived, and there were others who would oppose the humans, who would test their abilities again. Elias joined her quietly. "You seem thoughtful," he said. "I am," she replied. "I realize now that humans are not what I expected. You are capable of things I cannot fully understand. And the galaxy is beginning to see it too." Elias smiled faintly. "Strength is different for every species. Humans have survived because we have learned to endure, to adapt, and to protect. It is not arrogance to recognize that. It is honesty." Arikana considered his words. She had spent her life measuring strength in ways that now seemed limited. Humans did not fight the same battles as the Veshtari, but their victories were no less remarkable. She felt a sense of hope for the future. Not just for her people, but for the alliance between humans and Veshtari. "The others will come," she said. "Korzath will not give up. There will be more attacks, and the galaxy will watch to see if humans can truly protect what we value." "They will see," Elias said calmly. "Humans endure. We protect. And when we must, we adapt. That is all anyone can ask of us." Arikana nodded. She felt a sense of trust she had never allowed herself to feel before. With Elias, she knew that even if the galaxy tested them, they could survive. Humans were unpredictable, relentless, and resourceful. And one human, who had already faced armies alone, could inspire hope where others saw only fear. That night, as the twin suns disappeared below the horizon, Arikana felt a mixture of awe and anticipation. The universe was vast, full of challenges and dangers, but she knew that humans were not fragile. They were survivors, fighters, and protectors in ways the galaxy had never expected. Elias stood beside her, calm and steady. In his presence, she understood that peace was possible, even in a galaxy filled with conflict. Strength was not only measured by power or weapons, but by courage, endurance, and the will to protect those who could not protect themselves. And in that moment, Arikana realized that she had not only married to secure peace, she had married to witness something extraordinary: the rise of humans in the galaxy, and the extraordinary capabilities of a man who could face armies alone and survive. The Veshtari capital had never seen such tension. The twin suns had barely risen, but already the city was alive with preparation. Soldiers moved in coordinated lines, drones hummed overhead, and defensive energy barriers flared along the perimeter. Reports indicated that Korzath had gathered a massive force, intent on overturning the peace and proving the humans' weakness once and for all. Arikana walked through the command center, her mind tense but focused. She had trained her entire life for battles like this, but nothing could prepare her for the thought of facing the rebellion with humans involved. Yet, beside her, Elias Ward moved calmly, his posture relaxed, his expression unreadable. Despite the chaos, he seemed as steady as ever. "Are you ready?" she asked softly, almost to herself. Elias looked at her, his gray eyes calm and certain. "I am always ready. But remember, the people you lead are more important than any weapon, any battle, or any victory. Keep them safe first." Arikana nodded. There was a strange comfort in his presence, a quiet confidence that steadied her nerves. She had seen him fight before, had witnessed his skill, endurance, and adaptability. Yet something about this day, the scale of the threat, made even her apprehensive. The first reports came as the rebels crossed the border. Korzath's forces were massive, their numbers overwhelming. Their war machines designed to crush any opposition. Energy cannons fired across the valley, igniting the terrain and forcing Veshtari troops into defensive positions. The ground shook under the weight of armored walkers and hovercrafts, and screams of alarm echoed through the city. Elias stepped forward. He carried only a compact sidearm and his light combat suit. As always, the generals shouted, demanding he stay behind defensive lines. "You cannot survive this," one said. "It is madness for a human to face such an army alone." Elias did not flinch. "Sometimes, one person can make the difference," he replied calmly. "Sometimes, courage matters more than numbers." Arikana watched him move toward the battlefield. Her heart pounded. She had expected humans to be symbolic, to fight alongside Veshtari troops but not to lead. Yet Elias had shown her that humans were capable of feats far beyond her imagination. She followed cautiously, observing the chaos unfold around him. The first encounter was terrifying. Korzath's frontline troops advanced with coordinated precision. Energy blasts tore through the air, and armored soldiers charged, intent on overwhelming the city's defenders. Yet Elias moved with speed and accuracy that defied belief. He dodged plasma fire, scaled walls and barricades, and neutralized enemies with precise, controlled movements. Arikana could hardly keep her eyes on him. He leaped across gaps between structures, flipping over attackers, and used the environment to his advantage in ways Veshtari warriors could not anticipate. One by one, enemy soldiers fell, disarmed or incapacitated before they could even aim. His calm focus seemed impossible amidst the chaos surrounding him. Veshtari troops began to regain courage. Seeing Elias move unharmed through the storm of battle inspired them. Soldiers who had hesitated now advanced, their morale lifted by the presence of a single human who refused to be intimidated by overwhelming numbers. Korzath himself appeared in the battlefield, riding an enormous armored war beast. He raised a blade and shouted, confident that the human would fall quickly. "You are weak. Humans are fragile. Your allies will crumble." Elias turned, his gaze locking on Korzath. "Strength is not always what you see," he said quietly, almost calmly. Then he moved. In a blur, he closed the distance between them, dodging energy blasts and massive swings of Korzath's blade. Veshtari soldiers watched in shock as Elias leapt onto the war beast itself, using his weight and agility to destabilize it. With precise strikes, he disabled its controls, sending the beast crashing to the ground without killing the rider. Korzath stumbled, furious, realizing that the human had defeated his weapon with skill and timing he could not comprehend. The battle escalated. Armored walkers advanced, dropping heavy fire onto the city. Rebels tried to regroup, attempting to flank the defenders. Yet Elias continued to move with unmatched speed and awareness. He climbed the sides of the walkers, neutralizing critical components, and disabled them from within. Each action was calculated, each movement efficient, yet executed with a calm precision that seemed almost unnatural. Arikana watched in awe. She had seen soldiers and warriors fight their entire lives, but nothing compared to the human at her side. His strength was not raw power, it was endurance, skill, intelligence, and the ability to adapt instantly. He anticipated attacks before they happened, turning the battlefield itself into an advantage. Civilians were evacuated, soldiers repositioned, and the tide of the battle slowly shifted. Korzath's forces, once confident, began to falter. Their morale crumbled as they watched the human who should have been vulnerable move through their ranks like a force of nature. Arikana felt a mixture of fear and pride. She had married to secure peace, but now she understood that Elias did far more than symbolize it. He embodied hope, courage, and the possibility of survival against impossible odds. Hours passed, yet Elias did not tire. Even when surrounded, he adapted, finding ways to neutralize threats and protect the city's defenders. His endurance and focus seemed limitless. The rebel forces, now desperate, attempted one final assault, concentrating all their strength on the city's center. Arikana joined Elias at the front, standing beside him as he assessed the battlefield. She saw the calm calculation in his eyes, The way he scanned for weaknesses, the way he moved with purpose. "We can stop them," he said. "We just need to act decisively." Together, they led a counterattack. Veshtari soldiers, inspired and guided by Elias, advanced with precision. The rebels' formations broke under the coordinated assault. Walkers were disabled, squads disarmed, and the remaining attackers scattered. Elias focused on Korzath, intercepting him before he could escape. With skillful maneuvers, he captured the warlord alive, ending the rebellion in a single, decisive action. The battlefield fell silent. Smoke rose from the ruins, and soldiers slowly looked around, realizing that the human who had entered the fight alone had changed the outcome completely. No army had ever been defeated so decisively by one individual, and yet Elias had done it with restraint, precision, and honor. Arikana stepped forward, feeling both relief and admiration. She looked at Elias, realizing fully that he was not merely a symbol. He was a protector, a warrior, and a force of hope that inspired her people. The Veshtari, once skeptical and resentful of the humans, now bowed in respect. They understood that his strength was not about domination, but about safeguarding life and peace. Korzath was brought before the council, his rebellion ended, his forces defeated. Arikana watched as Elias handed the warlord over without violence, demonstrating that true strength included restraint. She realized then that humans were different not just in how they fought, but in why they fought. That evening, the city celebrated its survival. Fires were extinguished, wounded soldiers healed, and repairs began immediately. Arikana walked through the streets, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. Soldiers and civilians alike looked at her with gratitude, but many turned their eyes to Elias, the human who had made survival possible. She joined him on the balcony as the twin suns set, painting the horizon with warm colors. The city below was calm, alive, and whole once more. Arikana took a deep breath, thinking about what had been accomplished. "You changed everything," she said softly. Elias looked at her, expression calm. "I only did what I could. Your people have courage, skill, and heart. I only gave them a chance to succeed. Strength is not just about power. It is about endurance, protection, and hope." Arikana nodded. She understood now that humans were not fragile, as she had once believed. They survived, adapted, and inspired. They fought not for conquest alone, but to protect what they valued. And one human, her husband, had proven that even against impossible odds, hope and strength could prevail. The peace treaty that had seemed fragile now felt permanent. Veshtari soldiers no longer doubted humans. Neighboring worlds whispered about the human who had crushed armies alone. The galaxy, slowly, was beginning to recognize the truth. Humans were not weak. They were resilient, cunning, and capable of greatness beyond measure. Arikana felt a mixture of awe and gratitude. She had married to secure peace, but she had gained something far greater. She had witnessed courage, endurance, and strength that transcended expectation. Elias had not only defended her people, he had shown them the true potential of humanity. As night fell, the city quieted, and stars began to twinkle in the sky. Arikana realized that this was only the beginning. The galaxy would continue to challenge them, and humans would continue to face impossible odds. Yet with Elias by her side, she knew they could endure anything. Humans would rise, inspire, and protect. And the galaxy would learn a lesson it would never forget. Never underestimate a human, and never doubt the courage of those who fight for what they love. Elias stood beside her, calm and steady. In his presence, Arikana felt a certainty she had never known. The battles were over for now, but the story of humans, their endurance, and their unexpected strength had only just begun. And in that moment, she understood that peace, courage, and hope could thrive even in a universe filled with war.